Welcome to NTD News. I'm Kevin Hogan. Here are today's top stories. The U.S. Secretary of State urging Central American nations to tackle corruption and poverty to curb illegal immigration. While top officials work on the root causes, what is it like for law enforcement on the ground? All eyes on Texas with two important bills in the works. One banning vaccine passports heads to the governor, with another boosting election security blocked by a Democrat walkout. We hear from an expert on the implications. A Democrat senator comes out forcefully against ending the filibuster. What does that mean for President Biden's legislative agenda? Florida Governor Ron DeSantis signs a budget that raises wages for teachers, police, and emergency responders while lowering taxes. DeSantis explains how the state's been able to maintain such a strong economy during the pandemic. And NASA announces plans for 2 new missions to Venus. That's as SpaceX prepares for its 22nd commercial resupply mission, set to launch this afternoon. The United States' top diplomat says the U.S. has to work together with Central America and Mexico to curb illegal immigration. NTD's Jessica Beatty has more on his first trip to the region as Secretary of State.
Secretary of State Antony Blinken Wednesday encouraged Central American nations to tackle corruption and poverty to reduce the surge of migrants at the U.S.-Mexico border. He said too many young people in the region live in unstable situations.
Many are so desperate for a better life that they risk everything, their families, their communities, their town, their language, their culture. They risk all of that to make a very dangerous journey north.
Blinken's visit to Costa Rica is his first to Central America since taking office. He met with leaders from the region and Mexico. He once again said that people should not make the dangerous journey to the United States.
But we know it is not enough to say, don't come. We have to work together to make it safer for people across Central America to stay in their homes and communities without fear and with hope for a better future.
Blinken mentioned President Biden's proposed $4 billion aid package and U.S. plans to distribute COVID-19 vaccines along with other assistance. He headed back to the U.S. Wednesday. Vice President Kamala Harris is set to visit the region Sunday, aiming to tackle the root causes of migration.
We got some in the trunk, too.
And while top officials focus on the causes, Border Patrol and law enforcement are dealing with the consequences on the ground. One sheriff in Texas told the Epoch Times last week that it's never been so bad. Uvalde County Sheriff Ruben Nolasco said they're dealing with high-speed car chases every day non-stop to catch human smugglers, and that never used to happen. He said today's illegal aliens are more violent than in previous years, and a lot more sex offenders are coming in. Border Patrol in the Del Rio sector has got 95 sex offenders so far this fiscal year, compared to 6 the previous time last year. Nolasco says after being on the job for 5 months, he's not expecting federal help. Jessica Beatty, NTD News.
The Senate filibuster is currently the only thing stopping Democrats from dramatically and unilaterally reshaping the nation's laws. On Wednesday, Democrat Senator Kyrsten Sinema made a clear public statement that she wants to keep this feature of the democratic system. Arizona's Democratic Senator Kyrsten Sinema tells reporters Wednesday that she supports keeping the filibuster. She says the filibuster is a tool that protects the democracy of our nation rather than allowing our country to ricochet wildly every 2 to 4 years back and forth between policies. With Democrats controlling both houses of Congress and the White House, the filibuster is the only tool Republicans have to influence or block legislation, and it's the only thing stopping Democrats from passing their entire agenda without any Republican votes. The filibuster requires 60 votes to end debate in the Senate, and so at least 10 Republican senators have to join with all of the Democrats to pass most bills. There is an exception that allows a simple majority to pass budget bills. That's how Democrats passed the COVID-19 relief bill without any Republicans. Democrats wanted to pass their infrastructure bills using the budget process, but Senator Joe Manchin refused to allow that. Now, President Joe Biden is forced to negotiate with Republicans on infrastructure. Some Democrats and progressive activists have called for removing the filibuster. Democrats could change the rule with a simple majority vote, but Manchin and Sinema say they won't go for that. Sinema says if the system isn't working effectively, you need to change what you're doing, not just change the rules. President Biden appears to have been talking about Manchin and Sinema in a speech Wednesday when he was asked why more of his agenda isn't passing. He said it was because 2 Democrat senators vote more with Republicans. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer says he will bring a host of bills for votes on the floor when the Senate reconvenes, including a controversial election bill that would dramatically alter the country's voting laws. Most of the proposals are expected to fail due to the filibuster and a lack of Republican votes. The Texas legislature has 2 major bills on their hands. For one, both of the state's chambers passed a ban on vaccine passports, and the other is the election integrity bill that Democrats blocked by walking out and breaking quorum. Earlier, I spoke with Jim Hansen, the president of the Security Studies Group, on his reaction to the bill that would ban vaccine passports.
I think it's a wise move to go ahead and lay some ground rules about what the government can and can't do and what businesses within a state can and can't do, as far as telling people what type of medicine they have to practice for themselves. Now, I understand there's a pandemic, but that doesn't mean we repeal the individual liberty that everybody in this country enjoys.
Let's jump over to the Texas election bill. Republicans plan to call a special session now that the vote has been dead due to the Democrat walkout. What's to stop the Democrats from just walking out again when they call a special session?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting if there is a special session in Texas, just exactly how much leverage the Republicans have over the Democrats. There are some parliamentary procedures and there are some other things they can do that I think will allow them in a special session to get what they want. I think the Democrats ran out the clock on them in this regular session, and I don't think they'll be able to do that the same way during a special session without giving up opportunities for the Republicans to hit them in other places they don't want to be hit.
State Senator Brian Hughes says Republicans can make a common sense reforms to make it easier to vote and harder to cheat. But the critics say this isn't what we should be spending our time on because polling places in communities of color have been shutting down over the last, roughly a decade. What are your thoughts on this?
I think right now there is a major push by the Democrats and the left to make any type of election reform called restrictions on voting. And in many cases, a lot of this is just returning from the COVID era where they dropped a lot of the necessary safeguards that make sure we know who's voting, we know where control of the ballots are, and we know that only valid voters vote and only valid ballots are counting. Those got kind of thrown out the window because of COVID. So we're basically returning to 2018's rules. And in some cases, I think that's being portrayed as if there were some massive attempt to disenfranchise people. That couldn't be farther from the truth.
Texas Land Commissioner George P. Bush makes it official. He's running for Attorney General of the Lone Star State. The Republican made the announcement Wednesday night in Austin.
But I want to be clear. I'm not running against one man. I'm running for a set of ideas that bring us together tonight. Ideas like a government happy to give you anything you want is probably a government more than happy to take away everything you have. That it's okay to live out our faith in the public square, that we shouldn't apologize for the exceptionalism of our country, and that woke culture and critical race theory is damaging future generations, and we won't take it.
His bid means he'll be facing off against incumbent AG Ken Paxton, one of the more high-profile Republicans to hold that position. Bush is the grandson and nephew of 2 presidents. Although the Bush family has clashed with former President Donald Trump many times over the years, George P. Bush is pro-Trump. For his part, Trump says he likes both Bush and Paxton and says endorsement for the Texas AG will be coming soon. Republican National Committee Chairwoman Ronna McDaniel calls for reform in the presidential debate process. She says GOP candidates may skip debates if change isn't made. McDaniel sent a sharply worded letter to the Commission on Presidential Debates demanding changes. She accused the commission of being partisan and wrote that it no longer provides the fair and impartial debate forum that Americans deserve. McDaniel criticized the commission for not holding a debate before early voting started in the last election and for failing to be neutral and nonpartisan. She says 6 of the commission's 10 board members made disparaging comments about former President Trump. McDaniel calls on the commission to commit to being nonpartisan. She says they should have a code of conduct that prohibits members from making public comments about candidates, and they should publicly disclose criteria for selecting moderators. McDaniel says that if the changes aren't made, Republican candidates will look for other ways to have a neutral debate in front of the American people. 25 states announced that they would end federal pandemic unemployment benefits soon. These governors are concerned that jobless benefits are keeping millions of American workers from getting back to work.
Maryland Governor Larry Hogan said late Tuesday that he will end enhanced unemployment benefits on July 3rd. Under the current program, jobless workers get an extra $300 per week. The program will last until September 6th. Since March 2020, the state of Maryland has paid out more than $12.3 billion in unemployment benefits to over 730,000 residents. Governor Hogan said in a statement, after 12 consecutive months of job growth, we look forward to getting more Marylanders back to work. He said Maryland has a critical problem. Businesses across the state are trying to hire more people, but many are facing severe worker shortages. As of now, 22 states will end the benefits in June, and another 3 states will follow in July. Idaho Governor Brad Little said some workers are receiving more money on unemployment benefits than they would while working. He said in a statement, "My decision is based on a fundamental conservative principle. We do not want people on unemployment. We want people working." According to recent data from the U.S. Department of Labor, there are a record 8.1 million job openings nationwide.
Florida Governor Ron DeSantis signs his state's budget. He says Florida is giving raises to teachers, police, and others while still lowering taxes, all because of staying open during the pandemic.
Florida Governor Ron DeSantis signed his state's $101 billion budget Wednesday. The budget includes a $1,000 bonus for every teacher, police officer, and first responder, and raises the minimum salary for teachers to $47,500. It also raises the minimum wage for all state employees to $13 per hour. Upon signing the budget, DeSantis said, "We will be signing a budget that responsibly supports our men and women in law enforcement, our K-12 education students and teachers, conserves and protects our great environmental and natural resources throughout the state of Florida, but does so in a way that has the lowest per capita tax burden of any state in the country." DeSantis' office said the budget also leaves nearly $10 billion in reserve and lowers taxes by almost $170 million. The budget also includes significant investment in transportation, economic development, and environmental protection. DeSantis says the favorable budget is a result of following the science and refusing to close businesses and schools during the pandemic. He said, "A lot of people were trying to tell me to close restaurants like this last summer. We didn't do it. We kept business open. We got kids in school." DeSantis says the choice led to a strong rebound for the state's economy, which made the budget possible.
The CDC is investigating a multi-state outbreak of Salmonella from frozen stuffed chicken products. According to an investigation notice from the agency, 17 people have reportedly been infected across 6 states. 8 of them were hospitalized, though no deaths are reported. The CDC says different brands of raw, frozen, breaded, and stuffed chicken products are likely the source of the outbreak. They're labeled raw, but the breading or browning preparation may make them look as if they've been cooked. The CDC is advising people to read the labels carefully, follow instructions, and handle and cook these products safely before eating. Common symptoms of Salmonella include diarrhea, fever, and stomach cramps 6 hours to 6 days after exposure. Most people recover without treatment. NASA on Wednesday announced plans to launch 2 new missions to Venus between 2028 and 2030 to study the atmosphere and geologic history of Earth's closest planetary neighbor. NTD's Andrew Thomas has the story.
The U.S. Space Agency said it's awarding approximately $500 million for development of each mission. The first has been dubbed Da Vinci Plus, short for Deep Atmosphere Venus Investigation of Noble Gases, Chemistry, and Imaging. And the second has been named Veritas, an acronym for Venus Emissivity, Radio Science, INSAR, Topography, and Spectroscopy.
These 2 sister missions both aim to understand how Venus became an inferno-like world capable of melting lead at the surface.
Da Vinci Plus will measure the composition of the dense Venusian atmosphere. The data will help improve scientists' understanding of how it evolved. Veritas will map the planet's surface. That's to determine its geological history and why it developed so differently than Earth.
We hope these missions will further our understanding of how Earth evolved and why it's currently habitable when others in our solar system are not.
Da Vinci Plus is also expected to return the first high-resolution images of unique geological features on Venus called tesserae. The terrain may be comparable to Earth's continents and suggests that Venus has tectonic plates. In other celestial news, SpaceX is gearing up to launch its 22nd Commercial Resupply Services mission, or CRS-22. The mission will deliver more than 4,300 pounds of cargo.
This particular flight is going to bring up 37 investigations, and that is going to be part of the complement of the hundreds that we do every year on ISS.
It will carry research supplies along with vehicle hardware. That's including the first 2 new solar arrays, or combined solar panels. The CRS mission will also carry tardigrades, also known as water bears or moss piglets.
They can survive in a variety of conditions, including extreme temperatures, extreme pressure, and we're going to be taking a look at how they adapt to that kind of stress in space flight to see which genes are turned on and off, to see what we can learn about that.
The Falcon 9 rocket is scheduled to take off Thursday at 1:29 p.m. Eastern. There's also a backup window on Friday in case of anything unexpected. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
Up next, New York Governor Andrew Cuomo confirms the investigations he faces are costing taxpayers money. His legal bills could rise as he deals with multiple accusations. Candidates face off in a heated debate ahead of the primary for New York City mayor. They discuss crime and public safety and even throw some verbal jabs. Stay tuned to find out more. Taxpayers are set to foot the bill for a $2.5 million contract for lawyers representing Governor Andrew Cuomo's office in ongoing federal investigations over the way they handled virus data in nursing homes.
Governor, have you used any money from your campaign, or do you plan on using any money from your campaign to pay for any of the legal expenses related to the investigations that you're facing right now?
The state, the way it works is the executive chamber has retained the counsel, and that is a state expense. It has been in every investigation. So that's where we are now.
There aren't any attorneys that you're paying yourself from your personal funds or through campaign money?
Not at this time.
Legal bills are mounting as Cuomo and his administration fight other allegations. They include sexual harassment, publishing his leadership book in violation of state ethics laws, and providing priority CCP virus tests to his family. The New York City mayoral election is coming up. Former presidential candidate Andrew Yang and Brooklyn Borough President Eric Adams hurled harsh attacks at each other, and 6 other rivals chimed in during the debate on Wednesday. Here are the details.
The primary election for New York City mayor is in less than 3 weeks, and 8 contenders sparred on education, experience, and the economy. But the issue of public safety was in the forefront, with shootings and other crimes spiking in the city. Former presidential hopeful Andrew Yang touted his work as an official surrogate for the Joe Biden campaign, and he took a shot at Adams.
And now, Eric, we need to turn the page on the people who've been running our city into the ground for the last number of years. And you talk about public safety and security in these shootings. Again, 3 out of 4 shootings in Brooklyn are going unsolved right now. You're the Brooklyn Borough President. You know, the problems have been getting worse around you while you've been running for mayor and raising money from your friends in real estate.
Yang also pointed out that Adams had faced some ethics inquiries during his career. Adams denied any wrongdoing.
Let's be clear on something, Andrew. There was no investigation that came up and said Eric did anything wrong. And you should never get in a point, as a person of color that's wrongly accused often in this country, you should never get in a point that to determine that because someone reviews something that they did something wrong.
Eric,
you should apologize. You should apologize for making that comment.
Yang has been at or near the top of the polls. Catherine Garcia, former sanitation chief, stayed out of the crossfire and touted her experience as a government assistant.
As you know well, I had absolutely nothing to do with homelessness in this city during the de Blasio
administration. But you had to be there.
But I have been on the front lines. I have a strong plan to make sure that we are addressing this on day one and turning back the clock on the $3 billion that is being wastefully spent.
With shootings and murders rising in New York and other cities, many Democrats have dropped the calls to defund the police. The candidates spent a lot of the 2-hour debate discussing policing and crime. Polls show public safety is a top concern for voters. Maya Wiley is a civil rights attorney and a former MSNBC analyst. She discussed her plan for public safety.
I have the courageous plan that says we will end street homelessness, and we will do it the right way. It will include making sure we have crisis intervention and supportive housing, and we will keep people safe as well.
The winner of the Democratic primary is likely to win the city's general election in November.
New York Mayor Bill de Blasio joined officials from the New York City Fire Department, or FDNY, to honor first responders at the largest event since the onset of the pandemic.
Oh, say can you see by the dawn's early light?
And we celebrate today 70 outstanding individuals, 70 who are the best of us, the best of the FDNY, the best of New York City.
De Blasio emphasized that New York 2020 was a tough time for the city, but that the FDNY helped the city get through the pandemic. Medal Day is held yearly as an opportunity to honor firefighters and emergency medical technicians for their heroism on the job. De Blasio thanked FDNY personnel receiving awards for heroic acts, along with the entire agency. Just ahead, new body cam footage from Florida deputies shows a shootout between police and two teenagers. Officers responded to the scene on Tuesday. Researchers at Hawaii Pacific University analyzed discarded fishing nets to determine their origin. The debris wreaks havoc on wildlife and the ecosystem. All that and more on NTD News.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, inventor of MyPillow. Thanks to your support, you've helped make MyPillow become one of the fastest growing companies in America. Over the last 12 years, you've helped MyPillow create thousands of jobs right here in the USA.
When I got MyPillow, I'm asleep almost immediately. I stay asleep at night and I wake up more well-rested in the morning.
That's why I invented MyPillow. My patented fill adjusts to your exact individual needs and helps keep your neck supported and aligned. I'm interrupting this commercial right now. Retailers have canceled MyPillow, and to thank you for your support, I'm gonna pass the savings directly on to you. For example, you get my 6-piece towel sets, regular $109.99, now only $44.98, or MyPillow dog beds for as low as $19.99 with your promo code.
For the best night's sleep in the whole wide world, visit MyPillow.com.
Hi folks, Joe Namath here, and if you're on Medicare, this is important. You're now entitled to eliminate copays and get dental care, dentures, eyeglasses, prescription coverage, in-home aids, unlimited transportation, and home-delivered meals, all at no additional cost. Plus, your zip code may have coverage with the Give Back benefit that adds money back to your Social Security check every month.
I called to get dental, transportation, meals, and the Give Back benefit.
With this virus situation, I called to get everything I'm entitled to. I couldn't believe I was missing out on so many benefits.
With the uncertainty of the virus, you need to get everything you're entitled to. Millions of people have trusted the Medicare Coverage Helpline. You can too. Call now. It's free.
Call 1-800-764-1930. That's 1-800-764-1930 now.
Florida authorities released body camera and aerial video of a shootout with two teenagers. The footage shows Volusia County deputies responding to the scene Tuesday night. Just a warning, some viewers may find the following clip disturbing due to its graphic nature. Sheriff Mike Chitwood says the 12-year-old boy and 14-year-old girl broke into a house which contained 3 firearms. According to Chitwood, the deputies surrounded the home and tried to talk with the 2 suspects. But the girl came out, threatened to kill the sergeant, and then started firing a weapon. Officers responded by shooting back and injured the teen girl, who's in stable condition. The teen boy surrendered. They've both been charged with attempted murder of a law enforcement officer and armed burglary. The affidavits include details from an interview with the boy in which he admits to shooting repeatedly at officers using a handgun, a shotgun, and an AK-47, weapons they had taken from the home. San Jose police give an update on the deadly shooting that happened Monday night. The shooting involved undercover police detectives and armed robbery suspect. The police chief also released home security video that shows the circumstances that led to the deadly encounter.
Footage shows 31-year-old Demetrius Stanley holding a handgun. Stanley approached an unmarked vehicle. As the driver's side door opens, he pointed the gun at the driver. The driver was a plainclothes detective who was both conducting an investigation and had an arrest warrant for Stanley. Fearing for his life, the undercover officer opened fire and killed Stanley.
This is a traumatic incident for the family of Demetrius Stanley, for all the involved officers, and for our community. Our officers did not want or anticipate a confrontation that night and did everything possible to avoid having one.
Earlier in March of this year, Stanley was arrested for armed robbery, but he was released on bail the same day. Police later obtained more evidence of Stanley owning illegal weapons. Stanley's residence was under surveillance on the night when the fatal confrontation happened. Dozens of people held a protest against the officer-involved shooting and marched to the San Jose Police headquarters Monday evening. Police authorities say that racism is not involved in the incident. They cited Stanley being armed with an illegal weapon, posing an imminent life-threatening danger for the officer.
The handgun recovered at the scene on the night of the shooting was a 9mm, unregistered, non-serialized ghost gun with an illegal high-capacity extended magazine. The handgun was loaded with one round in the chamber and multiple rounds in the magazine.
Currently, there's an ongoing joint investigation by the Santa Clara County District Attorney's Office and San Jose Homicide Unit to determine if the officer-involved shooting was lawful and justified.
A video shows a brave teen in California shoving a bear off her property after spotting it swatting at her dogs. NTD's Jason Blair has more.
A teen in the San Gabriel Valley is shown in a video pushing a bear off a ledge in order to save her dogs. 17-year-old Haley says that she didn't have time to think and just reacted when she saw the black bear leaning into her backyard. The video shows the bear swatting at one of their smaller dogs. Haley runs over and pushes it away as it falls back off a ledge. She then grabs one of the dogs and runs to safety. Later in the video, some cubs are spotted with the bear. It's likely that the bear was trying to protect her cubs. Fortunately, there were no major injuries and Haley got away with only a sprained finger and scraped knee. Looking back at the incident, Haley says she probably wouldn't have done the same thing. She says, "Don't do what I did. Don't get near bears. Don't push them off ledges because you might not be as lucky as me." Haley's mother says they usually see bears in the neighborhood a couple times a week, but this is the first time they had one on their property. Jason Blair, NTD News, California.
Researchers in Hawaii are doing some detective work to trace fishing nets back to the fisheries and manufacturers they came from. The discarded nets are harming marine wildlife there. NTD's Andrew Thomas reports.
Scientists in Hawaii are working on an unusual probe aimed at cleaning up the oceans. The first stage of their research is gathering the so-called ghost nets. Papahanaumokuakea is the largest protected environment in the United States and a UNESCO World Heritage Site. An April cleanup expedition there brought back nearly 50 tons of fishing nets and other lost gear. The biggest concern is that the gear continues to kill fish and other wildlife, like endangered Hawaiian monk seals, seabirds, and turtles.
I've personally witnessed fish entangled in ghost nets out in the middle of the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. And in the northwestern Hawaiian Islands, I've personally cut out a sea turtle whose front flipper was completely atrophied and I could see the bone and it was completely deteriorated.
Ghost nets and other plastic debris plague oceans throughout the world, but the Hawaiian Islands are an epicenter for marine waste. Debris floats over from multiple countries, and nets have few, if any, unique identifying marks or features. Experts believe many nets are lost accidentally, but boats also occasionally ditch nets to avoid prosecution for illegal fishing. In a shed on Hawaii Pacific University's campus, the researchers pull apart the bundles of fishing gear, noting the relationships between items. Then samples are taken to a lab for more analysis. Researchers look at about 70 different aspects of each piece of net, including analysis of the polymer material they're made of.
We only really need a small sample here to really understand how it's constructed. We are trying to look at essentially every single metric that we possibly can. So we look at how it's twisted. Is it twisted versus braided? We are trying to look at how many strands does it have, its twine diameter, mesh stretch size.
The information is entered into a database, which may help scientists find patterns and identify manufacturers. Once manufacturers are found, researchers will try to trace nets back to individual fisheries or countries. The researchers have spent about a year collecting data and hope to have their findings peer-reviewed and published by the end of 2021. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
A massive sinkhole cracked open farmland in Mexico. The bizarre site looks like a massive handful of earth was scooped out. The hole is roped off and residents and farmers are staying away. The sinkhole was discovered in Santa Maria Zacatepec in Mexico's Puebla state. Locals reported first seeing it on Saturday. Mexico's National Defense Ministry says it is 160 feet wide in diameter and 49 feet deep. Local activists and nonprofit civil associations speculate the cause may have been an overexploitation of aquifers in the area by the industrial parks. It would mean underground rock and rock layers holding water are being overused. Local authorities have not given any details. Still to come, a Hong Kong museum commemorating the Tiananmen Square massacre is forced to close. It's seen as part of the increasing crackdown on freedom in the city. The head of Japan's Olympic Committee says the Games will not be postponed again. It comes as Japan faces another surge of virus cases. Find out more in just a minute. A Pentagon audit cleared 2 DJI drones for U.S. government use. DJI is China's largest manufacturer of drones. National security concerns about DJI drones have lingered since 2017. NTD's Lin Lin has the details.
The Pentagon cleared the use of 2 drone models made by China's DJI. The Hill first reported the audit found the drones have no malicious code or intent and are recommended for use by government entities and forces working with U.S. services. The Interior Department temporarily grounded more than 500 DJI drones in January 2020 over cybersecurity concerns. The Justice Department also banned purchasing drones from foreign companies last year. DJI is currently on the Entity List, which restricts technology transfer from the U.S. to the Chinese company. The Bureau of Industry and Security added DJI to the list for its role in enabling wide-scale human rights abuses within China through abusive genetic collection and analysis or high-technology surveillance. The Biden administration is currently reviewing the list. The Pentagon report is significant to DJI's recent reputation management efforts, but Congress is considering a 5-year ban on government purchases of drones made in China. The proposed ban was built into the Endless Frontier Act, which was nearing passage in the Senate last Friday. Lin Lin, NTD News.
A museum in Hong Kong dedicated to commemorating the victims of China's 1989 Tiananmen Square crackdown on pro-democracy protesters is closing for now. The museum says it's under investigation over its operating license. Here's more on Hong Kong.
Hong Kong's June 4th museum closed its doors on Wednesday. The space is dedicated to commemorating the victims of China's 1989 crackdown in Tiananmen Square. The museum that once displayed artifacts donated by family members of deceased students, archive photos, and video footage from Tiananmen Square is now behind closed doors. The museum said officials had entered its premises on Tuesday, claiming it had not obtained a public entertainment venue license and was potentially in breach of regulations. It was opened a decade ago by activists from the Hong Kong Alliance in support of patriotic democratic movements of China. The museum said it would seek legal advice and made the decision to temporarily close. The same group that organizes the city's annual Tiananmen Vigil. Alliance member Mak Hoi Wah said the decision to shut was devastating.
The past 32 years, the existence of the Hong Kong Alliance, we did nothing illegal to harm the country or to Hong Kong. And we have been getting legal approval for our possessions as well as assembly, candlelight vigil on the June 4th, every year in the past until last year.
In a statement, the museum said, facing the current difficult political situation, the Alliance deeply believes that Hong Kongers will not forget June 4th. The inspection raises concerns over freedom of speech in Hong Kong, which traditionally holds the largest June 4th vigil in the world to commemorate the crackdown on pro-democracy protesters. Mainland China bans commemorations and heavily censors the topic, and now there are fears that vigils will not be allowed anymore in Hong Kong. Police have banned the vigil 2 years in a row, citing coronavirus restrictions. But museum organizers hope people won't forget this moment in history.
Both Hong Kong and Macau authorities have banned residents from participating in events in memory of the 1989 Tiananmen Square pro-democracy protests days prior to June 4th, a historic day when leaders of the Chinese Communist Party oversaw a massacre against anti-regime protesters. The president of the Tokyo 2020 Organizing Committee is ruling out canceling or further postponing the Olympics. That's as doubts are growing among officials of city government and medical experts as to whether the event can be held safely amid the pandemic.
The head of Japan's Olympic Committee on Thursday ruled out canceling the Summer Games in Tokyo amid swirling doubts from medical and sports officials. Seiko Hashimoto confirmed in an interview published by Nikon Sports that Tokyo 2020 will go on as planned. She said, quote, "We cannot postpone again," although there will be restrictions in place. Athletes can expect to be regularly tested, and foreign spectators are barred from attending the events. It's yet to be decided if Japanese fans will be allowed into venues. Public opinion polls in Japan have consistently shown that a majority want the games canceled or postponed for a second time. Japan is battling a fourth wave of infections just 2 months from the scheduled start of the games. 10 regions, including Tokyo, are under a state of emergency until near the end of this month. Japan's Asahi Shimbun newspaper also reported Thursday that Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga is likely to call a snap election after the Games, showing his resolve to push ahead with the event.
Next up, developers build on a picturesque lake in Hungary. Government officials want to promote tourism and economic growth, but some locals oppose the venture. All that and more on NTD News.
When the game's over and it's time to go home, sometimes your car has other plans. That's why I drive with CarShield. As expensive as car repairs can be, I wanted the best defense around. And with CarShield's administrators, they make sure that you don't get stuck with expensive car repairs like this. Did I forget to mention that with CarShield's network, I also get 24/7 roadside assistance, towing, and rental car reimbursement included. That's peace of mind every driver needs.
I saved close to $9,000.
If it wasn't for CarShield, I wouldn't have my car.
I gotta tell you, it's quite a relief not to worry about expensive car breakdowns anymore. And with CarShield's administrators, you can choose your favorite mechanic or dealer to do the work. Plus, it's easier than ever to get America's favorite car protection. There's no long-term contracts, and coverage is affordable for every wallet size.
If I didn't have CarShield, I would have been out of pocket $7,000. As a parent of 3, I couldn't have that.
I trust CarShield administrators because they paid my claim.
Talk about MVP protection for less than the cost of a ball game. Take it from me, the boomer. Nobody wants to go through the headache of an expensive car breakdown on their own.
If you're driving without a warranty, you have to call CarShield.
Yeah, you do. So do yourself and your car a favor. Call CarShield. They're your best line of defense against expensive breakdowns.
CarShield administrators paid almost $4,000 for my repairs.
CarShield is wonderful. They saved me $1,300.
With CarShield, I saved $4,100 on my first repair.
Over 1 million happy drivers couldn't be wrong. Call CarShield now.
Protect yourself now against expensive auto repair bills. Call CarShield for a free and instant protection plan quote. Once your car breaks down, it's too late. Call 1-800-862-2990. That's 1-800-862-2990. 1-800-862-2990.
The U.S. has announced new tariffs against 6 countries for their digital services taxes. Affected nations include Austria, India, Italy, Spain, Turkey, and the United Kingdom. The U.S. views their digital services taxes as discriminatory, specifically targeting large Silicon Valley companies. For now, the tariffs are suspended, but they could go into effect in 180 days. The delay gives the White House time to negotiate its newly proposed global tax system. The number of migrants crossing the Channel to England has doubled compared to this time last year. Figures show almost 600 crossed in the past week.
More migrants are crossing the English Channel in small boats. A PA news agency analysis says more than 3,100 people had made the journey to the UK by the end of May. This is compared to around 1,600 at the same time last year. And almost 600 crossed over the bank holiday weekend. Since last April, there's been a sharp rise. In 2020, more than 8,400 migrants crossed the Channel from France to England, a record high. The National Crime Agency says criminal gangs have been seen using bigger boats to transport migrants to England away from the Dover Strait. It comes as Home Secretary Priti Patel sets out tougher rules against people smugglers. Under government plans, asylum seekers will be denied refugee status if they've passed through a safe country before reaching the UK.
Airports in the UK are seeing a surge in demand for private jets. This after the country announced that a green list of foreigners can visit without having to quarantine.
Prompt service, no need to line up. Arrive and board in 15 minutes. Leisure travel has stalled during the pandemic, but business and essential travel are keeping the private jet industry alive. Last week, the UK lifted its travel ban, allowing travelers from selected green list countries to enter without having to quarantine. A manager at the Farnborough Airport in South England says inquiry levels for private jets went through the roof following the new rule.
I think certainly it's come to the forefront of those people that are able to, that need to travel and have justification to travel. And business aviation certainly is higher up on their agenda. The smaller touch points that we enjoy as a private airport and a private experience through our lounges do allow people that almost a risk-less travel experience for sure.
More than 50 private jets still fly in and out of Farnborough Airport on pandemic days. Charter companies also saw waves of rising interest in hiring private jets. The commercial director of a private jet charter company says demand started to increase in early 2020 when border closures stranded many people.
We had quite a rush when the borders were starting to close. A lot of preemptive repatriation type flights, people getting home, not only to UK, but actually repatriating from the UK and Europe to other destinations as well. So that sort of happened in the very early days.
The director says he saw a high proportion of first-time charters last summer too. This indicates that the private jet market is attracting new customers.
Environmentalists in Hungary fear a cherished lake is in danger. Developers there are planning to build up lakeside properties and tourist attractions in the area.
Lake Balaton and its tributaries are famed throughout Europe. For decades, it's been a loved beauty spot where people can enjoy nature. Now, some worry the lake's fragile ecosystem and idyllic atmosphere are in danger, all because of possible property developments. Angela Botso, co-chair of the community action group Unity for Balaton, fears the area is being transformed.
We have noticed a drastic increase in the number of new projects directly on the shore in many municipalities along Lake Balaton. There's a huge destruction of the environment, trees are being cut and good quality reeds are disappearing, threatening the whole ecosystem of Lake Balaton.
Hungary's government views Lake Balaton as a potential goldmine for domestic and international tourism. In 2016, it designated the region as a priority tourism development area. It earmarked nearly $1.3 billion of Hungarian and European Union funds for railroad improvements, roads, marinas, and the renovation and construction of hotels and guest houses. According to the Hungarian Tourism Agency, more than 230 of these projects have already started. Mayor Daniel Balasso of Hungarian village Szigliget believes it's necessary to develop the area without endangering its pristine and fragile ecosystem.
Not every new project is necessarily a terrible thing. You just have to find the common ground that is satisfactory for everyone. What can we do against overbuilding? Here locally, we've created a new zoning plan where we've tightened the size of buildings allowed to be constructed on a given size of land, and we try to block new projects in places that are empty at the moment.
During Hungary's socialist era, Balaton was a popular getaway for workers. Citizens of both East and West Germany could also visit the lake, which made it a common meeting place for families living on opposite sides of the Iron Curtain. But the rapid increase of luxury accommodations has led to concern that the lake's natural and cultural heritage will vanish. Groups like Unity for Balaton are now seeking legal protections for the area.
The Balaton Act is essentially a good piece of legislation, but we think it's not strict enough because there are no sanctions built into the law. Moreover, in Hungary, there is no environmental protection ministry anymore to monitor compliance with the legislation.
Public beaches and shoreline camping areas have provided cheap access to the lake for years, but now they're being bought up, and this once affordable locale is becoming a playground for upscale tourism. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
Coming up, the birthplace of Lego reveals the world's largest Lego soccer ball. It's in celebration of the European Soccer Championships. Stay tuned to find out more. Staff at the birthplace of Lego in central Denmark unveiled the world's largest Lego soccer ball. It comes as Copenhagen prepares to host group stage matches in the European Championships.
At the Lego house in central Denmark, everyone from cleaners, designers, kitchen staff, play agents and the CEO pitched in to make this giant football. They used more than 170,000 Lego bricks, taking 150 hours to complete the task.
It's really great that we've been able to utilize our time during lockdown where we haven't been able to have any guests. Then we had this amazing building activity where we can really turn something into this giant football, and I'm really excited to see it happen.
The football weighs 2.5 tons and is over 4 meters high. It is composed of 75 modules in black and white, which is the classic football design. Lego CEO Jesper Vilstrup said the football was two major passions combined into one.
Well, I think if you take two major passions like football on the one hand and Lego bricks on the other hand, and then you combine that, and then you build something like this where you have the world's biggest football made out of Lego bricks. It's just two amazing things coming together.
Visitors will be able to see the display in the Lego Square until the Euro 2020 final on July 11th and take a look at the ball for free.
An elderly elephant at a zoo in Hamburg, Germany, is set to predict the winner of the European Soccer Championship. The match between Germany and France is set to take place on June 15th. 41-year-old Yashoda will remove the winning country's national flag from a silver box 1 day before the June 15th match. Hagenbach Zoo says if Yashoda removes both flags from the box, the game will end in a tie. Media reports say Hamburg soccer oracle was born in the Indian jungle. Yashoda lost track of her herd shortly after birth, and Indian park rangers then took her to a zoo. She came to Hamburg in 1990. The Union of European Football Association Championships takes place June 11th to July 11th. A pair of rare dancing lemurs now lives at the Chester Zoo in England, making them the first of their kind to be cared for in a European zoo.
If this pair of dancing lemurs reminds you of the movie Madagascar, that's because the African nation is their home country. A video shared by Chester Zoo in the UK shows the duo moving sideways through an enclosure in a characteristic manner. A primate keeper at the zoo said that these lemurs move around with a fascinating sideways gallop while gracefully holding up their arms for balance when on the ground. It rather looks like they're doing an elegant dance. When in the trees, they jump from branch to branch with incredible precision. Named Beatrice and Elliot, the two 8-year-old lemurs who belong to an endangered species traveled from North Carolina to help establish a new conservation breeding program for the rare primates.
The class of 2021 at Anderson High School in Austin, Texas, enjoyed an unforgettable graduation ceremony. It was in the dark. Actually, there was an ambient glow thanks to attendees turning on their cell phone flashlights. That's after severe thunderstorms in the area knocked out power to a sports complex where the ceremony was being held Wednesday night. But school officials refused to give up. They brought out a megaphone in place of the school's sound system. They were also unable to live stream the event. Local utility company Austin Energy apologized for the outage and confirmed on Twitter that power had been restored to the venue about an hour later. The principal's message to graduates at the ceremony embraced the situation, saying, "We can persevere through anything." And that's all for now. Catch us again tonight at 6:30 Eastern. I'm Kevin Hogan.
News. Get the highlights of our news broadcast and the most important headlines that we curate especially for you.
Don't let YouTube decide what information you get. That's your choice. YouTube is deleting our videos and cuts you off from a source of honest reporting. Make sure you don't lose access to NTD's news content, and take a quick moment to subscribe to our newsletter so no matter what happens here, you'll keep your access to a trustworthy news source.